Welcome to the DDT Archives. I am Chris, your host. We are not with Greg today. So Greg was incredibly fearful of our guest. Greg is scared of strong women. And with me today is the queen of crazy, KiLynn King. How are you, KiLynn?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing very well. Just finished up my days in my real job as a teacher, and now I get to have fun and talk wrestling.
Oh, okay. So you're going into your happy hour now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I want to dive right in with you.
Absolutely.
You have this incredible athletic background. How did that help prepare you for professional wrestling?
When I first got into professional wrestling, I always thought to myself, man, I wish I'd have started sooner. But because I didn't transition into wrestling until I was about 25. And honestly, I'm glad I waited till I was 25, because going through all playing sports in middle school, high school, and then doing martial arts in college, and then going through all those phases, I don't think I would have been able to make it through the kind of training that I had to go through if I hadn't have had all that background, Yep. Because a lot of people in their head think oh, professional wrestling is so cool, I want to do it. But they've never engaged their bodies in the way that you have to for professional wrestling, right? So they get in there and their bodies are in such shock, they're overwhelmed. And don't get me wrong, my body took a beating when I first started learning how to wrestle. It still does to this day. But I definitely think going through all the different types of sports, because I played volleyball, basketball, softball, track and field, you name it, I did it. Because I grew up with 5 brothers. So in my house, sports was our thing. We just, anything our parents would let us do, we'd do it. So I definitely think all of that background definitely prepared me for the right mindset and the right kind of knowledge that I needed for the physical part of wrestling.
Definitely.
For sure.
Now, did you grow up a wrestling fan?
I did. Okay, so I always get kind of embarrassed because my wrestling knowledge didn't start until later in life. So how it happened was my brother Lucas was a huge wrestling fan, but my parents are really conservative. So at first he was able to watch it, and they didn't notice, they didn't see what he was watching. And then one day, during the Attitude Era, of all the eras that my mom could have walked in on, with a wet t-shirt contest going on and girls doing bikini matches and stuff like that, she walks in and that's what she sees. So she's like, what the hell? And she's like, no, you guys can't watch this. So my brother would go to his friend's house and record, Monday Night Raw and all that stuff on VHS tapes, and then bring it home, wait for mom and dad to go away, and then we would watch it together. So when I started watching wrestling, I think I was a little too young to remember all of it. But I do remember that sensation, thinking oh, this is so cool. If I punch my brother, I get yelled at, but these people are on TV just beating the crap out of each other. This is awesome. And then of course, my brothers and I, we would watch the weekly episodic whatever, and then as soon as it was done, we would run around the house, gather all the blankets, all the pillows we could find, and we would create our own ring in our living room. And of course, I'm the youngest of all the children and the smallest. So my brothers always use me as here, take this choke slam, take this DDT, just flinging me around. I think one time I got thrown into one of those old-fashioned wooden chest things that you find at your grandmother's house. I think my mom had one of those, and I think my brother was trying to do some kind of swinging move. I couldn't tell you what it was to this day, but I ended up in hitting the chest, and I just laid there for a minute going, okay. So yeah, so my introduction to wrestling probably happened more early 2000s, because I kind of there was a period of time where my brother fell out of love with it. And so because he wasn't watching it, it wasn't in the house, and then my mind kind of forgot about it for a while. And then around high school, I was flipping through, we finally got channels in our house, and DVRs were a thing now. So I was flipping through channels and I saw it popped up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about wrestling. And that's when I got back into it. And it got to the point where I couldn't miss an episode. And I think the storyline was the Shield had just broken up, and Seth and Dean were going at it. And I can't remember how old I was, but I just remember thinking like, I've loved this for so long. Sure, I went away from it for a while, but I've come back to it. And even at the age I'm at now, I'm obsessed with it. And it's all I think about. Like I would go to my college classes and I'd come home and the first thing I would do was turn on the TV and watch wrestling. So I'm just like, I need to stop daydreaming about this and just do it. And of course, at the time, I had already been doing martial arts for like 2 years. So I slowly just like, whenever I went to those classes, I would look up wrestling drills. And then after we got done with all of our traditional drills and the martial arts class, I would go off to a corner by myself with where the mats were. And I would just throw my body down, roll around and practice all these drills that I could get my hands on. So, and then I finally just made a decision. I'm like, look, I can't daydream about this anymore. So I stopped doing school. I only trained in martial arts to keep my knowledge in check. And then I started working 2-3 jobs at a time, saved up with my brothers, and we moved to Florida. And that's how I kickstarted into wrestling. That's
awesome. It's funny how we all wind up having similar stories about parents not letting us watch wrestling.
Oh my gosh. I think my dad was more wasn't as like bothered by it, but my mom, she has the say. So when she saw it, she was like, no. And then my dad's like, all right, guys, you can't watch this. Now, of course, the Attitude Era has passed and it's a little more conservative now. So like I finally, because when I first told my mom I was not going to school anymore and I wanted to be a wrestler, she was so livid with me. She was so upset. I don't think her and I talked for like a month or two. Like the only time she'd ever talked to me was like, hey, get your laundry out of the dryer. Like she was, because that's all she remembered was the Attitude Era, the little bits that she saw. So finally one day I showed her like the more current women's wrestling and I said, look at that. They're so athletic and they're so smart and they're such great storytellers. It's like, this is what I want to do. Forget what you remember. This is what I want to do. And she still wasn't crazy about it. But then I moved to Florida. I was out of the house. I was away from them and I was posting videos and announcing shows and matches, and she realized that I was serious about it, and she realized that it was just a sport and and theatrics. So that I think that's when she finally was like reposting my stuff and being like, okay, this is okay. My daughter's doing something pretty cool. So
that's how you make it. You make it because mom retweets it. That's awesome.
Mom retweet, yeah.
My mom will never retweet me.
No?
Oh. No shot.
We'll get her around there.
We're going to have to work on it. So it's actually funny. So I grew up as the NWA was my babysitter. So from the time I was 3, my parents would sit me in front of the TV in the morning and I'd watch for 2 hours while they did whatever they had to do. Then at night again at 6:05, they put me on the couch. Wrestling was on. But my friend Greg, who does the podcast with me, his parents were super conservative also. So Greg only watched wrestling when he came over. And my brother and I were obsessed with it. My brother was actually an independent wrestler for a few years. And it was awesome watching him live out his dream.
Yeah.
But we fell in love with it because it was kind of like that thing you weren't allowed to do. Like we would stay up. He would sleep over every Friday night just so we could watch ECW.
Yeah, of course.
And that, because, we're a little bit older and we were 14, 15 when ECW was coming around, so just young enough that we couldn't go down to Philadelphia, but old enough to realize that we wanted to watch this and this was awesome. So that it is funny that no matter where you're from, similar experiences with wrestling. Parents are either using it as a babysitter or not letting you watch it whatsoever. Yeah. So, your training is definitely unique, with the Team 3D Academy.
Yes.
When you learn from the best, it's a great thing. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
My experience in finding 3D was so bizarre. So week 1, we had just moved to Florida. And I didn't know about 3D Academy. I'll be honest about that. I didn't know. I just had this instinctual feeling like Florida's where I need to go. Because the Performance Center had just opened up and you were just hearing so many things about Florida. So I'm like, this is where I need to go. I don't know what we're going to do when we get there, but let's go. So we moved out to Orlando. And at the time we were living over, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if you know where this is, but over by the Florida Mall, which is like Central Florida. And I was trying to find a gym to keep in shape. You know, we didn't have a lot of money. So I was just trying to find something close that I could just walk to. So I Google mapped the gym, went to this place, and I was there training, and this lady was there, and this lady was jacked. Like she was a competitor, you could tell. And she was watching me train one day, and she came over to me and she's like, "You're training for something, aren't you? What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, well, you know, I'm trying to become a professional wrestler." You know, I didn't really know what else to say. I was just like, "Yeah, that's my thing." And she's like, "That's crazy. I know a dude who's training at a professional wrestling school right now. I'll give you his number." It was so bizarre. So I'm like, stranger danger, but okay, let's do this. So she gives me the guy's phone number. He hits me up. I meet him at the gym. And then a couple days later, he's giving me a ride up to the school. And of course, in my head, the whole time I'm thinking like, you know, this is how people, you know, get kidnapped and die. But I just think that I just have to go. I need to make sure, you know, I'm a strong girl. If anything happens, I'll take care of myself. So I get in the car with this dude. We drive to school, and I meet the trainer there, Dan Carr. And then I didn't get to meet Devon or Bubba that day. They weren't there. But I found out that Bubba was coming the next day. So I came back the next day, met Bubba, and then I got to sit in a room with him, and he kind of, you know, talked to me, asked me some questions. And then a couple weeks later, they were having a deal at the school, which made it a little bit cheaper to sign up. And so my brothers and I got the money together. We put a deposit down, and then I was there for about 2-3 years. And like not long after, because originally when I first got there, it was Devon and Bubba. And then they had their other trainers there, John Cruz and Jay Rios, who are amazing. Like, so thankful for their tutelage. And then I want to say it was like 6 months after I joined the school. It could have been longer than that. I can't remember. But then that's when they decided, or Devon had just started working with WWE again. And so they had brought in Billy Gunn to come teach there because they needed somebody to help out. And gosh, how lucky was I to come to the school at that time, right when they were transitioning him in, because learning not only from Billy, but John and Jay and all of them, it's a bunch of different kinds of wrestling coming at you. So it was a great like combination of wrestling. So it was amazing. And the way they train you there, it prepares you so well, for the, like, just the cardiovascular ability that you have to have, and the mindset that you have to have, and understanding how to work with crowds and the psychology of it all. Like everything you need for wrestling they had. So I truly lucked out because I had no idea this place existed. And then within the first week or two that I moved to Florida, I meet a dude who just happens to go to that school. So it was fate. And I'm so thankful for that.
That's awesome. I mean,
yeah,
you're learning from one of the greatest tag teams in the world.
Yes.
Billy Gunn is another ridiculous athlete. I had I got the opportunity to meet him.
He's awesome.
When my brother was wrestling, I tagged along, and you know, was following my brother around, and just super nice. I think he thought I was more important than I was, but you know, no problem talking to me.
Billy's just a big goofball, and he's a big sweetheart. I think people, I know people usually are like terrified to meet him because he's such a big dude, and you see him on TV, and you know, and he was beating up the best. So I remember like when I found out he was coming there, I was like so nervous, and then he got there and I met him and I got a little taste of his personality. I was like, dude, you're so cool. This is gonna be fun. Yeah.
And he is probably one of the best athletes to ever step in the ring too.
Oh yeah. He's still going at it today.
I know.
Like, it's incredible.
And then funny story with Devon, the rumor has it he and I are in the same fraternity. So
real?
Yeah, that's I was told that by another one of my fraternity brothers who was visiting from a different college, and he's like, "Oh, you're a wrestling fan?" I'm like, "Huge." He's like,
"Yeah."
He's like, "Well, I'm a pro wrestler, and you know Devon's in our fraternity too." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" Like, I grew up watching the Dudleys. Like, what are you talking about? So we would literally, my friends and I would go to shows and get there early enough that we could talk to the people in the WWE shirts and be like, hey, listen, can you tell Devon that his fraternity brothers are here? And it never worked, but we tried.
No.
We definitely tried.
Yeah.
You know, what about your training was exactly how you perceived, and what about it was different?
What do you mean?
So when you went into training, what did you expect it to be? And then what was it actually?
I don't think I really had an expectation for it. I just knew it was going to be hard. I mean, it's brutal. You're putting your body through so much trauma every single time you get in that ring. So I knew it was going to be hard. And I think having the martial arts background, like, kind of prepared me, because I did traditional karate, and then I did judo and jiu-jitsu. So I was used to getting thrown around and bumping and stuff like that. Obviously it's a different kind of bumping, but my body was used to those kinds of jolts. And I think I was just, when I first got there, I was so serious and so intimidated because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I just knew it was going to be hard. And then once I got into it, I realized that it was so much more fun than I could ever imagine. You know, like, once you start to learn stuff and you start to get more comfortable with yourself and your ability in the ring, you just learn that, like, you're just having fun. You're all a bunch of kids, like, fighting and telling stories, and it's fantastic. So, and that's a big thing I learned through Billy too, because I remember when I first started doing matches and stuff, I think I let the martial arts background play in a little bit too much, because I would always get in the ring so serious, like I'm this big strong girl, like I have to have a straight face and just no silliness. And then I think one day, like, I was in the middle of a match with somebody, and Billy just stops us, and he's like, you know, wrestling's fun, right? And I was like, oh crap, am I not having fun? And so then, like, I think a couple weeks later, I was having a match, and I was like sleep deprived, and I was so slap happy, and they wanted me to do a match, and I'm like, all right. And so I just started doing all these weird stuff, like, in the match, like, not necessarily like just like mannerisms, just being quirky and weird, you know. And then that's from there on in, I was just like, okay, yes, we want to be technically good, we want to be smart in the ring, but it's also fun. Loosen up, have fun, don't think so much. So yeah.
Well, that kind of leads me to the next question I have for you. Your moniker being the Queen of Crazy. Yeah. Talk us through the development of your character.
Okay, so kind of leading off the same story, I was struggling. Like, I didn't know who I was as a wrestler. I remember, like, I had a match, and because the students will gather around and we'll have matches and stuff, and I would never get reactions. I never felt like I was being genuine. Like, I just felt like I was forcing it. And you know, because you know yourself, so you know when you're not being yourself, you know? And I just felt so disconnected from myself, and I didn't know why. And then it was that same night, I was just tired and slap happy, and we were hanging out outside the school after we were done with practice. And I was hanging with a couple of buddies of mine, or you might know him on the Indies, Coach Kiki Roberts, okay, and Chuckles the Clown.
Yep.
Yeah, so we were all hanging out after school, and we were just talking and swapping stories and stuff like that. And I was so tired that I just, like, started walking around in circles and like going, like, looping around their bodies and stuff like that, and like leaning, like falling into the wall on purpose, like just doing a bunch of weird stuff. And they kept stopping and looking at me, and they're like busting out laughing. They're like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know, I think I lost my mind, guys, like, I'm so tired. And then I just started, like, cutting this promo about oh my gosh, what was it, cuckoo water? Because I think we had all just started drinking, like, Bangs or something like that. Like, that's when we had and so, like, I was like, I'm gonna create my own drink. It's cuckoo water. It's like 70% alcohol, 4% pineapple juice. Like, I just started cutting this weird promo and they loved it. And so the next time we were in class, that's when I had the match and I was like, just being weird, quirky. And that was the first time I'd gotten reactions when people were enjoying what we were doing. And it was less about the wrestling, more about just being ridiculous and having fun in the ring. And so after that match, I got a lot of good feedback. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go with this, you know, because I'm naturally a very silly person. Like, I don't know. Like my friends always make the joke like, hey, KiLynn, here's the line. You just crossed it. Like, just because I'm just weird. And sometimes I say things that I shouldn't. So I just started doing shows on the indies and I didn't like, I was on my way to understanding who I was, but I wasn't 100% there yet. I don't think I was 100% comfortable with myself quite yet. And so this is like, it's like a week after Easter, 2018. And I'm walking through Target and I walk through the kids section and I find this little bunny rabbit just sitting on a shelf. And I look at the bunny rabbit and it was on sale for like $3. And I just had this weird feeling like, you should buy that bunny rabbit. I don't know why, but just buy it. So I bought the dang bunny rabbit and I brought it to school. And my coach looked at me and was like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. And so I just started using the bunny rabbit in the match. And then I would take him to shows and I had promoters who loved it. And then I had other people who were like, I don't get it. But, you know, it helped me for a while. Like, I was so nervous when I would go out there that I would just talk to the bunny rabbit and I would put all my nervous energy into the bunny rabbit and I would talk to the bunny rabbit. And it would be like, these people are so weird. What did you say? Oh, that's funny. Like, just weird stuff, you know, just experimenting where my brain took me. Fun fact though, Billy Gunn hates the bunny rabbit. I did a match for him with the bunny rabbit and he was like, I don't like it. And I was like, oh no. So I've slowly been using the bunny rabbit less and less because I've been more comfortable with my ability in the ring to demand the crowd without needing it. But I still have a couple promoters who are like, hey, can you use the bunny rabbit? And I'm like, sure, man, why not? I was like, you know, he helped me out. He got me through some tough times. Like, let's use the bunny rabbit. Let's do it. So yeah, and I mean, it's still developing. Like I've recently started adding some monikers. I work for a promotion called Mayhem on Mills here in Orlando, Florida. And in one of the promo packages that they made for me, they called me the Duchess of Dement. And I was like, ooh, that's good. So I added that onto my profile. And then I'm a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. Like, I loved it because it was a serious story, but it was a bunch of puns and silly stuff. And that's kind of how I am. Like, I can be a very serious person, but I'm also a very stupid person sometimes. So I always just connected with that show. I thought it was so cool. And so I started calling myself, I haven't really decided, like Slayer of Normality or Slayer of Wrestling. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, I'm playing with some stuff. I'm trying to evolve it a little bit.
That's awesome. You know,
yeah.
It's always, for me, it's always interesting to hear how the concepts develop over time. You know,
yeah.
For me, the athleticism that it takes, I'm always very jealous of people that can do the things that you do. The psychology piece, as a former football coach, as a teacher, I love that part of it. And so hearing how the stories develop and the characters develop, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So the other part that always fascinates me is the road. And obviously you've worked in so many different promotions. You're on the road a lot.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite lessons that you've learned on the road?
I think listening. Because a lot of the times I'm in the car with people who have been wrestling a lot more or a lot longer than I have. Or maybe they've been wrestling the same amount of time that I have, but they've just taken off a lot quicker. And so they've got a lot more experience, a lot more shows under their belt, and a lot more, they've just advanced with themselves and their character and their performance. And so I just love listening to their stories and the lessons they've learned, and just absorbing that, and knowing, like, if I ever get into that situation, remember what they told me. Like, this is what worked for them. This is what didn't. This is what got them in trouble and got them heat. This is what cooled things over. And also too, I don't know if this is really a lesson, but I love driving with different people and hearing their music taste. Like, I forget what show we were coming from, but Effie and I were on 2 of the same shows in the same weekend. Oh, I wish I could remember. The second show was Fest Wrestling. We were on our way to Fest Wrestling, so we had to drive like 3 or 4 hours across Florida to get to Gainesville. And so a bunch of us hopped in Effie's car because he was headed there, and then we went and stayed with one of the buddies on the show. And I just remember, like, I was very tired and very out of it, but Effie's taste in music is phenomenal. It's nothing you've ever heard. It's some weird stuff, but weird in the best way possible. And that's when I realized, so, like, every time I get in the car with people, I always, like, I never say, like, hey, we should listen to this. I always let them pick their music because I just want to hear everybody's taste in music, or just, like, that about, like, how you were asking me at the beginning, like, how they got into wrestling. Who was the first wrestler they ever saw that made them go, ooh, you know, stuff like that. It's really cool. But the music thing, I think, is definitely the one that stands out the most because, like, it's just cool to see, especially sometimes when you don't expect it. Like, you expect somebody to be, like, more of a rap person, and all of a sudden they turn on AC/DC, and you're like, wait, what? But yeah, and I told Effie too, I'm like, yo, you need to send me the names of these artists because this is trippy. Like, this is awesome.
We were talking, I forget who we were interviewing, but the idea of theme music came up, and I always said, if I ever was a performer, I'd find some corny, cheesy music from the 80s.
Yeah.
Because, like, I think I said I would use Glass Tiger, Don't Forget Me, because they're never going to, because it's so stupid. You know? And to me, like, everybody wants to be the cool, badass bad guy.
Yeah.
I want to be the corny-ass bad guy. I want you to laugh at me. You know?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, you have to... Like, the other day, Greg hit me up. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, listening to Belinda Carlisle and grading essays. He's like, no, you're not. I took a screenshot of my computer screen. It was Belinda Carlisle. Sent it back to him, and he's like, please don't ever send that to me again. And it's just like, the music is fun that way. You know, everybody's different, and I know mine changes by my mood. So you would have to take like 20 car rides to truly figure out who I am. But, you know, it really... It is definitely a way to figure people out, and that's awesome.
Well, in high school, I also did musical theater, and I did musical theater, and dance and stuff like that. So my taste in music is all over the place. Like, I always joke that if you turned on my computer and you went through what was in my iTunes, you would think I was bipolar or something, or like had 4 different personalities, because I have like the girliest music you'll ever have, and then I have like death metal. Like In This Moment, like bands like that, like, whoa, like just, but then you'll find like Eminem on there, and then you'll find, like Bob Marley, like you'll find like so many different styles, and then you'll find like weird groups who don't even sing. It's just like musical instruments, because that's for my dance days. Like, that's the kind of music we listen to, and I would always be like, oh, I like that. Ask my teacher, like, what song is that? And then I would find all these bands that I never knew of before. So yeah. And in regards to the corny entrance music, like, absolutely, because one of the biggest parts in how you start your match is your entrance. Like, the fans are going to understand how they need to feel about you from your entrance, your energy, the music, the presentation you give. So yeah, if you want them to know, like, hey, yeah, I'm a dick, but I'm a goofy dick, there you go. Get some corny music and come out there and then flip them all off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially in some of those southern cities, I would have a field day as a New Yorker.
Yeah.
It would not take long for me to be a bad guy.
Right.
So having performed in different parts of the country, how does the fan reaction differ in different places?
I, when I was in Georgia, like I've been to Georgia a couple times. I've wrestled there, and some of the places that we go to can be like the most rundown looking place, but then you get the most feisty fans, and it's so fun because then you'll have some promotions here in Florida. Like don't get me wrong, there's quite a few promotions that I work for here in Florida where the crowd that they draw, whether it's 30 people or 100 people plus, they are the most energetic, amazing fans. Like when you go to Fest Wrestling, amazing. When you go to Mayhem on Mills, fantastic. But then there will be some shows in Florida where it's like 50-50. Like you have to like you'll go out there and I'll notice you have to focus on just a few of the people. Like you want to focus on all the people. I don't want that to be misconstrued. But like you'll realize that there's only a few people that are going to react to you. That if you say something to them, they'll say something back, kind of thing. So it's definitely, where else have I gone to? Queens of Combat in North Carolina. Like they love wrestling. Like you go out there, they want to see all the cool stuff, you know? So it's always very different. You never know what to expect. But the biggest thing I've learned is if you can find that one person in the crowd, like I think there was one Queen show where in the particular match that I was having, I think we were like the second to last match on the card, so they had already seen a lot of the same stuff, right? So they were kind of starting to die down a little bit. And there was one girl in the crowd who was just, I think she might have been 8 or 9 years old, and she was just so excited to be there. She didn't care what she was watching. She was at a wrestling show. This wasn't something she did every day, and she was excited. So I drew in on that girl's energy, and I had a big old conversation with her. Like anytime, like we ran a spot, settled down, I'd turn to the girl and I'd be like, did you like that? Or just like something silly. I would say something silly to her. And then for the people who were kind of dying down, you know, I'd throw the girl out of the ring and I would take ourselves over to that crowd and I would say something sassy to them. And then I'd chop the crap out of the girl and you know, get that reaction out of them, because you just got to remind them like, hey, you're at a wrestling show. This is cool. Have some fun, you know, because I think sometimes people forget that. So yeah, back and forth, but the more you do it, the more you learn how to wake them up if they are like that, you know?
Definitely. Do you find a lot of fans want to be the entertainment at shows or not so much?
The drunk ones do. you go to shows, you get the people drinking, and they'll just run out and say the most craziest things. Like, I think it might have been. It was Sweetwater Pro. There was a guy in the crowd, and it was a kid friendly show. So, you know, so we were being PG, we were being good, and I think I did the suck it thing after at the end of the match, and I couldn't tell you word for word what this guy said, but it was very inappropriate, and he was sitting next to 2 kids, and I walked up to him, I slapped the beer out of his hand, and I was like, yo, kid friendly show, dude. And like, you know, you could tell he was just trying to get a part of the story, because he like, there's no reason why he should have said that in front of kids. Yeah. So I was you know, of course, me, like, I'm crazy, I don't care, so I just slapped the drink out of his hand, and I was like, excuse me, no. And then I did I don't know if you ever heard this promotion, Sausage Castle. They're also in Orlando. It was run by, oh my gosh, I can't remember the guy's name. But my buddy AJ Francis, he got me booked on that show, and it's this cool, like, it's a really cool, nifty place. You go there. There's a campground. There's a mansion, like they have parties and stuff like that. And then they have this warehouse at the back of the campground where they have a wrestling ring set up. And you come there, they have shows. And that kind of crowd is more like they're just there to have a chill weekend and, you know, drink some beers, have some fun, and get wild. Like that's really what the atmosphere there is like. So when you wrestle there, they're not always like 100% in it. But you know, you get out in the crowd and you involve them in it. Like, that's when you have to make them a part of the match. So, like, I remember I went up to this one dude. I think I was in a 4-way or a triple threat. So it was it was a part of the match that I didn't have to worry about. I wasn't in it. So I was just beating up this one girl on the outside. And, you know, I gave her a big punch. She sold down, and then I walked up to this one dude. I reached my hand out to his drink, and he handed it to me, and then I just started chugging this guy's drink, and it was a big ass drink. I shouldn't have taken this guy's drink, but then I chug it, I finish it, I give him back the cup, and I'm like, crap. You laced that, didn't you? And he lost it. He thought it was the funniest thing ever. And so then, like, I started walking around the ring like, oh, crap, I'm messed up. So, yeah, I mean, like, sometimes they'll involve themselves, but sometimes, you know, you got to have fun and involve them. Make them part of the match. Why not?
Absolutely. So, I know we share a favorite wrestler.
Yeah.
The Dynamite Kid. Who
yes.
I consider one of the top wrestlers to never be a major singles champion.
He's amazing.
Tell me a little bit about why you love him so much.
So this is another one. I think we talked about this earlier. Like, I didn't really know about Dynamite Kid until later on. So I got introduced to him when I was older. So I'm ashamed to say I don't know everything about his work, but I love watching him and Tiger Mask go at it. Like, their matches, so good. Like, I remember the one of the first matches I watched between him and Tiger Mask. They did this whole spot at the beginning. They were just going, and then all of a sudden it was just spot after spot of them ducking and dodging each other's stuff. But the way they did it, the way they set it up, like, Tiger goes for a high cross and Dynamite moves out the way, and then Dynamite goes for a high cross and Tiger moves out the way, and just his body language and his attitude in the ring was so powerful and athletic and good, and you could tell, like, he knew what he was doing. The other thing too that I loved was, I think I was watching one of his matches back in like '82. Again, Tiger Mask, and this is like 13, and it's a 17-minute match. They're like 13, 14 minutes in. So there's only like 3 minutes left in the match, and they're still locking up. And chain wrestling and maneuvering each other around and putting each other in submissions. Like, they're not trying to run spots and hit all this crazy stuff. They wait until the last minute of the match to hit the dive, to hit the crazy, for him to climb up to the top rope, do the headbutt, like. And I was just like, how cool is that you're watching the crowd's reaction, and they're not doing anything crazy. They're not hitting all these, like, fantastical finishers, but the simplicity of how they set it up and move out the way and do this and then hit those last three things at the end, the crowd ate it up and they went crazy. And that's what I really liked about his work is just, like, he was so dynamic in the fact that he could do some high flying stuff, but he was also very technically sound, and he had a good strong style. Like, just the dynamic of his work and the way that he could work a match and keep everything so basic, but still know how to set it up in a way to get the crowd's reaction. That just amazed me, because in my head, like, still being fresh into wrestling, like, I'm thinking like moves. I got to hit all these moves, forgetting the fact that there's a way to get the crowd into it and amaze them without having to slam somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was a big thing that I really admired about him. Like, I'm still watching his work and getting to know him more, but I love that. I love it.
Definitely try to get your hands on some of his stuff with Brett in Stampede.
Yes.
That stuff is awesome.
So I actually date another wrestler, Trevor Reed, TC Reed, and he is amazing at finding, like, matches that people forgot existed. So I get to watch all this, like, Manami Toyota. I've been watching a lot of her lately, and he found, like, he found a guy online who has all of her collections, like, the best of. So, like we sign up for people's Patreons, they send us DVDs and stuff like that, and so he's been getting his hands on a lot of stuff for us. So, trust me, I'm going to get much more acquainted with Dynamite Kid and all of the greats, because I think my knowledge is more, like, Attitude Era beyond. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't even used to watch Japan wrestling. Like, I've just started watching that. Like, I've been watching the Joshi wrestling more and stuff like that. My hands on a bunch of tournaments with Aja Khan and stuff, and I've just been watching so much of that, and I love it. So, yeah, he's so good.
Yes, absolutely. Fun fact, my dog's middle name is Dynamite.
Oh, really?
And yes, I am crazy enough that my dog has a middle name and a suffix.
Hey, Pets are family, man. Give them a middle name.
Megalodon Dynamite Capizzuto the 47th.
Yeah, I always joke because my boyfriend has a dog. His name is KiLynn, but I always joke that I want to get a golden retriever and I haven't decided what breed yet, but a dark-haired dog, and I want to name one of them Khaleesi and one of them Arya, and just just silly stuff like that. So I'm definitely a big fan of using nerdy names for animals.
And of course, Megalodon is a bulldog, so it makes sense.
Oh, of course.
So I kind of want to wrap it up with this.
Okay.
You obviously have done a tremendous amount in a very short period of time. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
I could still be on the Indies. I could be signed somewhere. Who knows? Some people's careers, they get lucky right away, and some people wait 10, 20 years before they ever get a contract anywhere. My hope is that within the next 5 years, I'm making bigger paychecks, I'm getting signed, and I'm doing more for women's wrestling. Because for me, from where I come from and my mom's reaction to wrestling, I would like to change that for moms all around the world. Like, forget about what you know about wrestling. This is what women's wrestling is now. So yes, I want to make the big money, of course. I want to get signed somewhere and make a steady paycheck and know that I'm financially good. But I also want to do some good for the history of women's wrestling. That way, no matter how conservative a mother is, she can watch this and be like, oh, this is really cool. This is really, really cool. And I want, if my daughter wants to do this, that's all right. So definitely do more for women's wrestling.
Absolutely, and you're doing a tremendous amount. Your performances are awesome. And,
thank you.
Thank you for entertaining us the way that you do.
Thank you.
So with that, why don't you plug your social media? Anything else you want to get out to the fans?
Sure. So I've simplified it. My social medias used to be like a bunch of different things, but I've switched them all to the same thing. It's at KiLynn King for Instagram and for Twitter, and then I do have a Facebook for my wrestling. Same thing, KiLynn King, KiLynn, and then King. You follow me there. I post all the time. I keep you guys updated about what I'll be doing. So unfortunately, with the virus going on right now, I don't have any upcoming bookings in the near future. But hopefully something soon. And as soon as I have something, it'll be up, and you guys will know.
Awesome. And when you get up to the Northeast, you got to let us know, because we'll definitely come and support.
Absolutely.
So thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, KiLynn, for joining us. This has been the DDT Archives Indie Lounge. Make sure you follow us at DDT Archives. You follow me at Chris_DDT_HSLB. And at some point I really will learn my Twitter handle, I promise. With that, have a wonderful night. Thank you for listening as always, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.